talk about the updated release schedule. So we had talked last time about extending the kind of testing period so that we would, so as normal, we're going to deploy to all of the test sites and sites in implementation tonight. And then typically we would deploy the following Tuesday, but we would like to extend that out another week so that the next one is going to be the 13th. And a couple of reasons for that. One is that we have a holiday next Monday, so that's a day that people wouldn't have to test. And then the other reason is we are having our staff retreat next week, so we want to make sure everybody's available in case there's any issues and make sure that we have people around to check on things for you. We'll still obviously be checking sport tickets and all that kind of thing next week. But so the plan is we will delay that, give people a full week and a little bit to do testing going forward. So we're going to do that for September. So September will be September 13th. October, we had already talked about moving that to October 18th. And then we're just going to continue to do that November and December. When we've talked to partners about having a little bit of extra time, everybody's thought that would be a good idea. So just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. Cal's already updated all of the calendars. So if you have that printed, go ahead and print it again. Otherwise, it's up to date and it's linked to from Slack and websites and that kind of thing. So I think that's all on that.
Before we move on, James had a question in the chat about the LEDA notifications. Pretty sure the answer there is yes. That's our plan to make the notification history.
Yes, so we don't have that today, but that was an idea, and we'll go over kind of a summary of what we talked about at that meeting with notifications. And James, I know you were there. Our plan is to have that in the future because we know that lots of people swipe those notifications away and then want to get at them later. So not today, but yes, in the future.
Well, next on our agenda is talking about AspenCon. There is a sign-up sheet in the agenda, and I think Cal just grabbed the link to post in the chat. Maybe I'm lying, but it is linked on the agenda. So if you are interested in helping plan, please sign up. I don't know if, Jordan, if you had anything you wanted to add.
Just a round of thank yous for those of you that completed the survey. I think we determined that we don't want the general AspenCon to be right before ALA. That was one of the ideas that we discussed. We will be doing some kind of meeting there. So if you have staff that are attending or if you're a consortium with member libraries, there will be something for you there, but not the AspenCon. Timing wise, it's looking, there's some options in the fall, a little bit better options in the spring, but we thought it'd be a really good idea just to get partners together to kind of talk through the pros and cons of when we have it, how we have it. There's also the option to attach it to another conference. So there's a sign up sheet there. Please sign up if you're interested in helping us figure this out. And I'm also hoping that we can have that sign up in the same kind of announcement at the community meeting on September 20th. So we can then roll right into the Aspen planning priority, the review that we do every month. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Hey, if this is your first Aspen gathering, then every month we just kind of go through the same thing. We talk about what our plans are for the upcoming release, and we like to show you how our plans kind of matched with reality, just to kind of keep everyone up to date with what we're thinking. So the plan that we presented at the last gathering was partner priorities and high priority bugs. I think almost everything that Mark went over was those partner priorities and high priority bugs. And then you saw the saved search notifications in LEDA Part 2. We also had a stretch goal, which was ACI worldwide and e-commerce integration and additional e-commerce integration. And we planned to do that if we had time, and we did have time. So we have actually gotten a significant amount of the way through that. So we hope to finish that next month. Any integration with another vendor, we can get blocked just by communication or by different things. So it's never for sure that we get through it, but we are having good communication right now with them, and we're getting it done. So let's look at our plan for September. On the left, you have what we just showed you, what we just did. And now we have what we're doing for September on the right. So still, we have a lot of partner priorities, a lot of high priority bugs. We're going to continue to work through those. And then if you kind of look down to, well, then we have e-commerce ACI worldwide. Like I told you, we're still working on that one. The project to update formats, what we noticed going through a lot of those partner priorities and a few of the bugs is that a lot of them had to do with formats. So when we noticed those patterns, you've probably heard this from us in the past, we like to gather all the tickets, look at them, and then kind of make a little project out of it. So that's what we did with formats. So we'll be looking at getting some new formats recognized within Aspen. So especially things around like media types, like the 4K Blu-rays or some of those combo packs, and even some of the places where we have discs and it's kind of vague with a disc, like do they mean audio disc? Do they mean computer disc? Working on some of those things for formats. Another thing that we're going to start, we'll see if we finish this one next month. The formats project might take a little bit longer, is understanding when we have different formats within the same bib. So multiple items, different formats on the same bib. And we've had a couple different requests for having Aspen handle that a little bit more elegantly. On the LIDA front, this is actually coming out of the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago with notifications, is the ability to create custom notifications. So what this is in LIDA is kind of like a free text notification, and then you can select the home library and the patron type that would get sent to within the app. So we'll talk about that and what kind of came out of that meeting in a little bit, but that's what's planned. And then later coming with LIDA, we need to start working on these. It's going to take some time and some planning and some groundwork. Our notifications or notices with text and email. And then also we're going to get started on, I don't know if there'll be anything to see, but we need to get started on facets and filters in LIDA. That's going to be a little bit of a bigger project that will involve some new APIs. And you've seen the designs for those, or I think people that have been here for a little while have seen the designs. So it's going to be a great improvement to LIDA. Any questions on our plan for September? Okay. I'm going to move it right along then, and you can also ask a question and we can circle back to it later. So I mentioned that we had the Aspen community meeting on app notifications. So thank you to everyone here that attended that meeting. It was helpful. We're already incorporating some of the things that we learned at that meeting in our plans and in what we're doing. So some things that came out of that meeting, that these notices should be succinct, so short, positive. One of the things we talked about were patron fines. And it was like, we don't really want negative notices saying patrons have fines like to pop up. And that they have a specific call to action that goes to that relevant screen in the app. And I talked to you a little bit about, we've done the work to do the deep linking where we can. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. The second thing, that this is what James was asking about that we don't have yet, but there should be a place in the app to review the previously sent notifications. So if you just happen to miss it or swipe it away, or I don't know, sometimes my screen gets just cluttered with a bunch, but I know I want to look at it later, we will look to add that. Another thing we talked about was privacy, that it shouldn't necessarily show the name of the title or the item that comes up on the screen. If it's something like you have a hold available and it maybe like your phone's just on the table, you might not want that to pop up. Or the name of the card holder. So sometimes for linked accounts, you might have multiple cards, but it's like, let's provide a link to the users where they need to go to get that information for privacy reasons. Another thing we talked about was if a user doesn't want notifications, we can do something like in-app notifications. So when the patron opens the app, it will kind of let them know within the app that they have something to be notified about. And then the last one is patrons should have control over what and how they get messages. So once we have email and text, they'll be able to look at the different message types and say, yes, so you want app notifications for this. And then maybe I want email for this, or email and text for this one. The other thing we talked about are the different things that the different types of notifications we might want for LIDA. And then we did a little bit of prioritizing here. So the first two were the top two that people wanted beyond searching. The first one is the customized notice by patron type or home location. For things like emergency closings, or you could always, you'd want to be judicious with this, but you could always send out something at the beginning of summer reading with like a link to sign up. And this is what we're going to be working on this month. So it's going to be exciting to get that one done. The second one, we talked about the value of this a lot, but I think everyone at the meeting understood that this is going to be complicated. So this is the circulation messaging. So things like holds, your courtesy messages, coming due, overdue. We're not going to be building the logic for this into Aspen. That is very much an ILS functionality. So this is something we're going to have to slowly roll out over time. It'll probably be one ILS at a time because we'll have to figure out how to tap into that logic. But we definitely understand the value of getting those circulation messages as app notifications. And then the next two, subscribing to authors and subjects. So this would almost be like a shortcut to a saved search. Where we could just have a button next to an author or a button next to a subject that would notify you anytime the library added a title that had you that author or subject. And then last is for events. So if we have that event integration, being able to notify when you have an event coming up. I am going to check the chat to see, I see that a couple things have come in. Oh, and it looks like Morgan answered Aaron. Okay, great. So we don't have any chats then. Any questions on the app notification meeting? Or I know there are several of you here at the meeting today that were also at that meeting. Anything that I missed that you would like to highlight that the group talked about? Check in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself. Okay. Well, I would just like to say thanks again to everyone that came to that meeting. It was enormously helpful. Tara says in the chat that that's how she remembered it, which is good. For sure, there's things that you're going to be getting very soon that came out of that meeting. So that's exactly what we want is your feedback and then be able to act on it. And then the last thing we have today, we just like to talk about the upcoming conferences. So we have a number of different conferences coming up in October. We do have some in September as well that we talked about last time, but we like to give you kind of a bit of a heads up. So we have one in Iowa, Pennsylvania. Internet librarian, we'd really like to call out Scott from Swan will be speaking, and I'll be up there with him, maybe saying a few words too about how they implemented Aspen. And then we have the Illinois Conference, Virginia, and the New England Library Association. I'll go ahead and stop sharing and hand it back over to Morgan.
Okay, so we are, I think we're officially in open time. We've been going right up to the end every single time for the last several gatherings. So this is your time to ask a question or bring up something you want to talk about with the community. Anybody?
Tara at Swan. I would do a quick plug for the Aspen community meeting. It's going to be on September 20th, so coming up soon. And we have already some good topics to propose. So I'll throw the link to the agenda in the chat if you want to take a look and add anything.
What was that date one more time, Tara?
September 20th.
September 20th. Okay, and I'll copy your agenda link and put it on our agenda. Any other questions, musings, topics you want to discuss with us or the community?
I guess I have a question. It's really more about like I'm trying to wrap my head around the schedule. I know I always ask questions about the schedule. It's irritating, I'm sure, but it's really more just like we have these priority things and some of them have been bugs, and I'm just unclear if it's like a commitment to work on a certain number of those a month, or like what's the process for figuring out. It's hard when I get asked by staff, like, when is that that's been a known issue. When is it going to get fixed? And I'm like, I don't really have an answer for that. So just anything that kind of gets towards that would be useful for me.
I could definitely speak to that. So we have a couple of different ways we look at it. One is if it's a bug, the severity of the bug. So how much is it impacting patrons? How much is it impacting their main actions? And those, if it's considered like critical, we try to take care of that the same release. If it's a big impact, if it's impacting actions, but not like a big patron action, that would be considered a high bug. And then we have some lower level bugs that are things that are just kind of cosmetic. So that's on the bug front. So critical bugs, we try to do same release. High bugs, we've been trying to tackle 1 to 2 per week, which then would equate to 4 to 8 per release. And that's kind of loose because what we look for then in prioritizing bugs is, has more than one partner mentioned this? Has more than, how many partners is it affecting? And has more than one partner brought it up? So if, 3 partners have brought up a high bug, that one's going to get taken care of a lot sooner than if it's a little bit more of a minor bug that just one partner's brought up. As far as the features, right now, what we're really looking for are patterns. And that's what we talked about with the format project. So lots of partners, their highest priority has to do with formats. We can kind of help a whole bunch of people at once. And that's what we really try to do for now. My goal is that later on, we need to do a little bit of work on our side to get the essentially analysis or the numbers that we need. Is I want to be able to look at everything and be like, okay, who hasn't gotten something in a long time? Who hasn't gotten one of their priorities? And then be able to tackle some of those. We don't have the data to do that really well right now. Just to make sure those of you that have really special needs that no one else is going to be able to report on, that we can tackle that too. What Morgan noted in the chat, though, is if there is something that is, it might seem minor on our side, but you're getting lots and lots of people talking about it, ask for an update on that ticket. And then whoever gets those updates, or if people are asking for a lot of updates, they tend to let me know, and that helps us too. But it is a tough thing because we do have so many partners and there are a lot of requests. So those are a lot of words on basically how we try to do it. It's more of an art than a science, but you're always welcome to ask. We try to be as open as we can.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then I think there was also at some point a discussion about library systems that are on the same ILS having, I don't know if this is an Aspen thing or an off-topic thing, having like a monthly meeting or something, just because it seems like ILS features are so, specific that it feels like that would be really useful. I don't know if that's an Aspen thing or I just need to reach out to those other Polaris libraries or something.
We can definitely do that. We have a group like that for Symphony right now that was led by Symphony Libraries. If you're on Evergreen, you're going to be getting an email from me later today or tomorrow asking to start an Evergreen group, just because some things coming up with upgrades and things like that. It's a way that we can get information on those topics. But if you want to start one for Polaris, like by all means, we can definitely do that. You can either start it on your own or just reach out to me over email and I can help you do that and we can get all those librarians together.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to see a Polaris user group for sure. All the ILSs.
If Sierra wants to get in there.
Yeah.
Koha.
Anything else anyone wants to ask or talk about? Oh, James has a comment in the chat. I want to see folks Google Analytics GA4 setups. I don't know enough about Google Analytics.
I'm happy to meet up with you, James, before our our community meeting if you want, though, like with the caveat that I am also figuring it out as I'm going. So I don't know. Yeah, you can take everything I've done with a grain of salt.
Are any other libraries here using Google Analytics?
And just a shameless request, if anything comes out of that meeting that would be helpful for our documentation, we would really appreciate that. And we could put it in our help center so that other libraries that want to get that set up can use. Pretty please.
And I would say, James, I know you've done some special things with searching and keywords or search terms. Those would be wonderful things to document for other people.
Yes. Feed our help center.
Tara, we do have Google Analytics. You're talking about the GA4, right?
Yeah, we've got both running right now.
Mm-hmm. Have any other groups on Aspen started that work with, I'll say it's Blue Cloud Visibility, but it's the Saphira product, which is now kind of under the EBSCO wing?
You're stealing topics from our community meeting, Aaron.
Oops, I will keep quiet.
But yeah, there is at least a topic that I did not add on getting your Aspen results in the Google Knowledge panels, which we're doing right now through the linked data service.
It was the analytics traffic that made me think about it.
Anything else? Oh, yes, in the chat. Let's see. So James is putting a request out in the chat. Nashville is going to go live with their Arabic interface soon, but they don't really have that many Arabic works. Does anybody out there know about making search of a set of English metadata work when search terms are in other languages?
It's a big left field question, and I'm not expecting any responses right now, but if I don't know if anybody has had it rolling around in their head to translate everything in their catalog, I guess is what it really boils down to.
Crickets.
That's just, it's hard to do without the metadata. Because we've talked about it a few times with different people in terms of like, do you try to reverse translate some of the search terms to say like, if you've translated like, I don't know what a good term, like, well, probably wouldn't translate overdrive, but say you had translated overdrive. So if you search for overdrive, but in Arabic, if it tries to look that up in the translations and then apply the reverse to the search, there's some interesting things we could do. And I'd be really curious to get some usability studies from those patrons that are Arabic speakers and see how they're actually using Aspen in the catalog. Or if it's and how much English they know. Are the English titles relevant, or are they really just looking for those titles in Arabic? So hopefully, if you do some usability tests, we'd love to see how those go.
Well, this is a metadata thing to wrestle with. Isn't that
Yeah.
probably why this is a little quiet?
Yeah. Yeah, and the closest I can think of to having the metadata without recataloging everything is to do some other reverse translation. So if it's translated in Aspen, we can say, is this something that's been translated in Aspen? If so, we know the English term, and then search for the original or the either the original Arabic term or the term in English, which would be cool, but
well, and then
not useful.
So this is I appreciate dragging this conversation on. I really want to ask you, Mark, about years ago you were looking at it was an OCLC data set, and trying to figure out how to, and it was basically an authority sort of linked data set, and trying to figure out if that could be used.
I'm not sure how well translated that was. That was we were looking at that for grouping records and pulling like sets by SBNs. But I don't know that it actually had translations. So
of subject headings or titles or authors or even transliterations, because I thought it had transliterations of.
I think it depends on if the title was released in a different language. So if
All right.
It
That's
was also
enough.
a huge data set. It was like a huge data set.
6 gigs. I vaguely remember something like that.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'll stop asking cricket questions.
But yeah, like Jenny was suggesting, like looking at the top searches and trying to create a dictionary back and forth, especially if we could get search terms per language. So if you were using it in Arabic and people are searching in Arabic, what they're searching. So.
What a great thing to start my Google Analytics GA4 stuff with.
Yes.
Any last calls for discussion or questions? Well, thank you again for another great gathering, and we will, oh, wait, before we go, sorry, psych. Did we want to mention, well, I'm going to mention it. Next week, we are at staff retreat. So we will still be keeping an eye on the ticket queues, and we have designated time to work on tickets and things. But just keep that in mind if it takes a little longer for us to reply, because usually we're pretty within minutes or hours if it's, the same day. So otherwise, we'll see you next gathering. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.